Hey, good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Jeff Colson here, junior hockey advisor, ready for a great Monday night. I hope you guys all had a good weekend. Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time, we get so many new members into this wonderful family of people learning about the process. That's what we do. Is we spend a lot of time talking about the process, learning about how it works to move from 16s, 18s, juniors, preps, Minnesota high schools, some other high schools too, and we try to move up through juniors. Remember, all roads lead to juniors if you're trying to get to college. Okay, all roads lead to juniors. Now, the only exception to that is if you're a first rounder, you might get away with not going that route, but most likely you're going to still play for the National Development Program or something similar. Listen, tonight, I want to throw this up there. Please, if you are on tonight, please take the time to say hello to us. Tell us who you are, where you're watching from. We'd love to know who you are. We'd love to get involved. I am here solely to try to answer questions tonight. I've got one small topic. It won't take long. If we don't have much of a question group tonight, it'll be a very brief broadcast. It's okay if not every broadcast goes an hour, hour and a half. I'm perfectly fine with that. So with that said, let's get rolling. Remember, take some time to say hello. Send us a little discussion, a little chat on the discussion group or on YouTube or wherever you're at. We'd love to know where you're at, what you're thinking, and add those questions. Facebook user. I hate when it just says Facebook user, but it says, I've learned so much through this group. Hey, thank you. I have too. You know, believe it or not, you think that I host this. I've been doing this stuff for a long time. I work in the industry. I've been, 35 plus years of doing this type of stuff. And I go on to our discussion group and I read the comments, and I'm amazed at the insight that I see people put into their comments. I'm amazed at how the collective group, the synergy of the collective group is far superior to, now you bounce off the walls. Don't get me wrong. Anytime you got social media, you bounce off the walls. You get comments that are like, but you gotta find the median. You gotta find the middle. You gotta find that sweet spot, and you get great information. I thank you all for participating, all of you that do. So anyway, tonight, let's talk about turning down a junior offer. Okay, is it wise to turn down a junior offer? We're going to go through some different scenarios. One scenario that just came up this week is had a player that we this is real life. This is real nitty gritty stuff, and I didn't use that word gritty alone because I hate grit or gritty. But the real life on this was we had a player come down and skate with the team. We liked the player. We liked him. Thought he was a good player, and the player went home and decided that he was going to skate for another team in a different league. He was going to go to the OJHL and skate for a team in the OJHL. He's a 2005, so is that a good idea? Is it a good idea if you've got a offer from a USHL team, a NOL team, and you decide to go to a lower league? Is that a good idea or not? Give me your thoughts. I want to throw a couple scenarios out. Another scenario is you got a tier 3 team that you go and you visit and you fall in love with it, and everything looks good, but you made a decision to you want to play somewhere else because closer to home, less money. This team that you're turning down has got it's got all the intangibles. It's got the quality coach, great facilities. They're always in the hunt for a championship, and they pump out players to the next level, to college hockey. How do you say no to that? What do you possibly think what are you thinking when you turn down those offers? Is it a good thing or not? I am going to give you my opinion on this. I'm going to walk through some why things are the way they are, and I want to see your comments too on this. So Judy says hi. How you doing, Judy? Good to see you too. Um, all coaches need to let the parents know about junior hockey advice. Hey, Frank, thank you so much. I appreciate that. We are trying really hard to make this a really good objective site for information. And by the numbers, I think we're doing a pretty good job. So, okay, let's go to that first scenario. Player comes in to a null level team, skates for a week, impresses, goes home, thinks about it, and decides to sign with an OJHL team. And his reasoning was, it was very positive. He was like, I don't think I'm ready. I want to work on my game. I want to work on my skills. I want to get stronger. But he made it very clear, I don't want to lose this relationship with the program. And he was talking to one of our directors that was it was Bloomer. For everybody that watches this show here or watches this live stream. And so do you get, from a team's perspective, do you get frustrated? No. Are you disappointed that you didn't get a player? Yeah, but that rolls off so quick because we're in the business of getting disappointed for not getting the player all the time. They're going to go to the USHL. They're going to go, they've already played 2 years of juniors and they want to step out and go to college. There's always a reason. They get injured, that something's not going to work right. So you've got to be very flexible from the team side. But let's not worry about the team side. Was this a good move for the player? Was this a good move for a player to turn down a null opportunity? What's the risk? Well, he's going to a good league. It's not like the OJHL's it's not a tier 3 league. That's a CCHL league, and it's one of the more competitive CCHL leagues. So I don't think that is it a step down from the null? Yeah, of course it is. But is it a bad move? I would contend that that's not a bad move for that player, that's actually a good move if he thinks that it's going to help him. I think it's a mature move. And that's one of the things that we as parents, when you put the parent hat on, that we can get in the way of, because our egos get in the way of, we got to play in the top league. I preach it. Play in the best league you can, play in the best team you can. With the caveat always being, if your skill set is right for that league. Clearly in this situation, the player made a decision, and it might have been, because he did say he was talking to his family. They came to the decision that he wasn't quite ready to play in the null yet. And because he wasn't quite ready to play in the null, he's going to go play in the OJHL. I think it's a phenomenal move, and it's a mature move. And the downside is it might not work out where he gets another opportunity in the null. Nobody knows what's going to happen 1 year from now, but the OJHL is close enough for everybody to watch. The OJHL is a quality league. We'll be monitoring it. I'm sure there'll be a lot of other null teams monitoring too. When I say, is the door open with us? Of course, the communication door is open with us, and of course, if everything falls in place, we'd love to have him back. But what happens if the spot that he was going to take this year gets filled with a really good quality player, and next year we've already got that player on our team, that specific type of player on our team, because we do build our team by very specific roles within it. It's not like we're looking for 4 cloned lines that all the players look exactly alike. So there is that risk, but on the other side of it, the risk is pretty minimal when you're going to play good hockey for a good coach, and you might be able to actually do exactly what you say. I think the odds are in his favor that he's going to do exactly what he said he's going to do. He's going to go into the situation, and he is going to play great hockey. He's going to get better, stronger, faster, and he's going to be able to come back with junior experience where he's able to notch it up much easier than a U18 player notches it up to the null. In the South especially, it's rare for a U18 player to be as effective as they were at U18 when they get to the null South. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Put your comments up. I'd like to see what you guys are thinking on this topic too. I'm going to give you another scenario here. In the meantime, all the regulars are on tonight. We've got Andrew coming on and saying hi from New Brunswick. Good to see you, Andrew. Appreciate you coming on board. So the other scenario I gave you was you're a tier 3 player. Okay. And one more. I just see it come on. And all right, Liz in Ohio's on too. Thanks, Liz. Good to see you too. When people say hi, it's hard not to stop and say hi back. We don't have that production feature where somebody can be doing the typing. I got to kind of do all that myself here. One day when Bloomer actually makes this show big, we'll get a production assistant where I can have my coffee. And I'm under the weather a little bit, so I'm actually drinking tea tonight. Just too much good stuff going on in bad weather. All right, so tier 3. We got a tier 3 scenario. You're a tier, you're a tier 3 player. You get an offer from a really good tier 3 team, but you decide because of finances and because of distance that you're going to choose to play for another team. Is that a good idea? Closer to home, a little less expensive. Is that a good idea? Well, there is no good or bad on this situation. You're making a logical choice. I would hope that you walk through every scenario of every time you sit down and do these, what good can happen if I stay home and play for a team close to home? What bad could happen? If I go to this team that's the stronger team with the better coaching, what's the upside of it? What's the downside of it? And weigh that all out. I can't give you the answer for everybody, but I can tell you that saying no to an offer, I would be very careful to do it right. And why? Why? I said this all the time. We are a very tight-knit sport. We're on top of each other. Assistant coaches at one level can turn around and be an assistant coach at the next level up within days. You could literally get an offer from a junior team, turn it down, and then find out before the next season that guy is now the head coach or the assistant coach of the college team you want to play for. So you've got to be very careful, and this happens. The situation I'm giving you happens all the time. I'll give you an example of a situation with the Null. Great coach. We did a 1-hour interview with him, and that's Adam Phillips. He's a USHL assistant coach in Muskegon right now. He got done playing pro, and he took a job in Odessa in the Null as the assistant coach. The head coach gets fired. He takes over the team as the interim head coach for that year, parlays that into a job with Adrian, and he wins a national title at Adrian. He was recruiting players, all the players that he had made contact with that prior season, he was recruiting. And that's how, things like that happen all the time. D1, D3 pro, you'll see guys that are, your junior assistant coach that all of a sudden they're a college assistant coach because they're trying to, move up the ladder. Head coaches a little bit less because they tend to stay a little bit longer because they're trying to establish a little bit of a program before they jump. But assistant coaches could jump after 1 year, not uncommon. They could jump after 3, 4, 5 years, not uncommon, as they move up the ladder to gain more experience and more breadth of different leagues. Adam Phillips is a perfect example. He's been in 3 years. He was an assistant coach in the Null, Division III hockey, and in the USHL. I have a feeling he'll be a head coach at one of those 3 levels, or maybe even a D1 assistant, then a head coach in the near future. That's just because he's a quality coach and he's going to move up. You have to keep that in mind when you say no to a program. You have to do it in a positive way. Text is so difficult. You can be interpreted so many different ways. Make sure you're very positive and make sure you really craft a text well if that's what you're going to use. I know so many of you out there use text versus being on the phone or emails or any other thing. So the best way, of course, is in person. If you can't do it in person, a phone call, then a text if you do that. So let's see what else is going on here real quick. Charles from Massapequa, thanks for coming on. Good to see you. And then Frank says, big difference from going from U18 to Junior A. If you're the best player in U18, you'll find most of the kids in juniors are better than you. So Frank, I fully agree with you that you're going to find a challenge to move up. I don't necessarily know if I would say better, because every year I try to recruit a better, talented player than I got last year. I'm always striving for that. That's what we do as an organization. I think every organization tries to do that. They try to improve their team. But a rookie coming in isn't as knowledgeable, isn't as strong, isn't as experienced. So that knowledge, strength, speed, experience, those will make the guys better. Not necessarily skill and not necessarily ability, because, there's a lot of these U18 players that we bring in, they might be one of our most skilled players. But because they're not, they're just not tuned in yet, it just takes a little bit of time to get them tuned in and ready to go. So, all right, let's see what other question we got here or comments. I'm going to do this without reading it. No edit. This is live. Let's see what this says. My son is 17, still another year of 18, but made the jump to the USPHL. He went from elite to premier throughout through his season this year, and now is trying to come back. Whoops, sorry about that. To Canada to play, but an advisor told him to stick to the USPHL. Woo. Okay, so there's not a lot of information there, but that's an interesting comment, and I appreciate the comment. Just remember the difference between a league of advancement and a league of destination. We talked about this. A league of advancement means you see a clear path from the team you're on to the ability to get to the highest level possible for you, okay? There's nothing wrong with playing in the USPHL. USPHL Premier can get you to play Division III college hockey. It can get you to play ACHA college hockey. You will play college hockey if you want to, coming through the USPHL. Can you play USPHL and play NCDC? Yeah, but look at the numbers. You got to go back and look at each team individually. You may find that the team that you're associated with doesn't take as many players as you think they do to the next level. Can you play in the null from the USPHL Premier? Not directly, and most likely it's going to be a very, very hard stretch to get there. Can it be done? There are a few. We've showed you this, every other week or so we show you those. Man, oh man, does it look like there? I do have eyes, folks. I'm looking at the screen and it looked like it just was like black slits there. So I guess I gotta do this while I'm talking to you guys. The point though is that, a league of destination means, okay, if I go play in the USPHL, most likely that's the league I'm going to be in. Okay, most likely that's the league I'm staying in, with a slight chance of going to the NCD, with a slight chance of going to the EHL, and maybe if I'm young enough, I can get up to one of the Canadian leagues. Now, if you start young enough, maybe you go from the USPHL Premier, go play in a Canadian league, and then you make the jump to the NAHL. But that's a rare find, and it doesn't happen very often. That's a very, very slim statistical choice if that's the route you take. Now, every guy takes a different route. There is no, there's nothing unique because everybody goes a little bit differently. So I'm just talking about statistics here and about where players move. A league of advancement versus the USPHL would be a league like the OJHL. There's a lot of players that go into the OJHL is 05s, 06s for this coming year that will play in another league. They'll play in a higher league. They'll play in the BCHL. They'll play in the North American Hockey League. A select few of them will go play major juniors too. Now that's, they're a little bit younger. They'll be 07s next year. So, but it does happen. You'll see guys advance out of that league because that's a league of advancement. You're not expecting players to stay. Now, we've talked about this. What are the biggest leagues of, take away the majors, your OHL, your Quebec, your Western, that's Canadian major hockey. Those are all leagues of destination. You get there, your next move should be to pro hockey if you take advantage of your opportunity. We're talking about CCHL, BCHL, Tier 1 and Tier 2 in the States, which is the USHL and the null. Okay, so we've got those teams. Which ones are teams of destination? Which ones are the team that you're going to stay on or the league you're going to stay in? Well, of course, it's going to be the BCHL in Canada. You get there, there's no reason for you to leave. It's a high-paced, good league, and most players statistically only leave if they have to leave or they're having a bad experience. Most of those players are locked in for their 1 to 3 years. Most Americans that come out of that league, and 50% of them are coming from prep school. They play the one and done, and they're jumping onto one of the big schools on the D1 side. The NAL is a sandwich program. It's a league of destination and it's a league of advancement. You do see players playing on the NAL. We've done this number before. We've shown this statistic several times over the last few episodes. You can play in the NAL and play in the USHL. There's over 100, I think it was 150 that have moved back and forth there that are in the USHL right now. That's pretty big numbers. That's pretty big numbers. So you're going to see teams in the USHL with a lot of NAL experience, guys with NAL experience. So you can do that. That's one of the few leagues that has the ability for you to stay in it and go to D1 and also to advance up out of it. Now, you could say the NCDC too, but remember, the NCDC numbers-wise, it just isn't the league that it was at one point, and it really hasn't turned into what everybody thought it was going to be. Yes, you can advance. We've seen that. We've talked about the numbers. You can advance to the NAL out of the NCDC. If you're coming in fresh without a commitment, the odds of you getting a commitment in the NCDC are very, very, very slim. And, we're talking about, there's a lot of kids that are committed. You look at the Hitmen, you look at the Junior Bruins, you look at a couple other programs, and I haven't done I usually do this in the spring. You look at those numbers and you'll see that there are a lot of Division I players there, but they got it when they were playing prep. They got the commitment when they were playing U18. And you can't always follow it because what happens is if a kid commits at U18, when he gets to the NCDC, the way that the college hockey and elite prospects track the committed players, it shows up as his current team. So when you're looking at those statistics online, you're seeing the current team that player's playing for. You're not seeing where he got his commitment. I absolutely wish they would show you what program he committed with, because I think that's a much more valuable statistic than the team he's currently playing for. So, it used to be you could go down, and sometimes you still do see it. Elite prospects will tell you, in fact, I would say 75 to 85% of the time, if you go to Elite Prospects and you go down to the bottom of the first page, it'll show you in the transactions section what team the player played for when he signed his Division I commitment. Now, it's fairly accurate, but it's much more accurate than looking at the College Hockey Inc., where it shows you all the lists of all the current commitments, because that is not accurate to where the player committed from. Does that make sense, folks? I hope it does. Let's see what else we got here. I see that Richard, let's see what you got to say here. I hope I handled it the right way, turning down someone that tried to recruit my 10U 2013 player. I was thinking about it even at his level. Yeah, yeah. Because remember, you're going to be in that community, whatever community you're in. I'll give you an example, Detroit. There was one year a few years ago where a head coach was an assistant coach on Cranbrook, one of the best programs in Michigan as far as a prep school, a hockey day prep school. And he was also involved with one of the Tier 1 elites, Little Caesars, I believe it was at first. Then he jumped to Honeybake, the rival, okay? Then after that, he jumped to another program too, and I think he even changed high schools. So the reason why it's important to kind of keep the positivity and the good relationships up and leave a relationship, you might not want to do it, but the right thing to do is to make sure that you keep the doors open, because these people are all over the place. They talk, and coaches, they get this negative bias against people that don't like them. And coaches are very thin-skinned. They tell you they're not, but they are. And so you got to be very careful. Sorry, folks. I'm like I said, I'm fighting a little bit of a cold here. So, Richard, just try to be positive. I don't think you did anything wrong. Just be positive on this. So let's see what Liz has to say here. Liz comes back with, so if a player is emailed an invite to a tryout and it turns it down 1 year, but decides to go to a pre-draft camp, open registration, not invited, the next year at the same program. Oops, I got to read faster. How do the coaches view that? That's a little bit different story because you haven't. If you're an invite, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have a relationship with you yet. That's just the initial part of it. So I don't think you really have a problem if you turn down an invite to a camp or an invite to a main camp. That happens all the time. I don't think people. I mean, if you've been recruited by this team for months and they expected you to be at main camp and you said no, and then next year you go to the pre-draft, I don't see that scenario happen very often. But if it does, that's probably not cool. I don't think you're talking about that in this situation. I think you're fine going to it. That's just starting it out. So let's see, Jeff. How do the Brahmas pick to have one of their pre-draft camps on Long Island in Bethpage? How did the Brahmas pick Bethpage as a place to do a camp? It is 5 minutes from my house. I signed my son up. That is because one of the owners of the program lives in that area. So when he wants a camp close to his home so he can watch pre-draft camp, there's a camp in his area. So enough said there. No issues. It was strictly because we've got an ownership group that wants to be proactive and to be a part of seeing what's going on. And I do believe that the owners think that if they put a camp there, they might get a few different players that would normally not go to Chicago. And we'll see. I did not have much in that decision process. I wasn't involved in that decision process, but I hope that's going to be a great camp, and I look forward to being there. So, all right, the NAL team in the New Hampshire, interesting. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The whole expansion, Colorado, Rochester, New York, New Hampshire, all this is going to be fun. It's always fun to get new teams in. It's going to be fun to see how they develop. Which game, what model works? Who's got the best model to grow a program? Is it going to be Rochester? Is it going to be Colorado? Who is going to solve this the fastest? Who's got the depth and the leadership of the program? Your general manager, your off ice. Who's going to be able to crack the code on the East Coast of getting a crowd? Even Colorado. Are they going to be able to get a crowd in that area with all the hockey that they've already got with D1 programs and with professional teams? It's going to be a tough situation. We'll see who's going to win that battle of the three teams. What are your thoughts on the Elmira Junior Enforcers USPHL teams? I really don't have an opinion on. I say this all the time. There's 80 some odd teams. It seems like 3,000 teams playing at the USPHL Premier and Elite level. I deal with a couple of them, but I really don't have a chance to track them because we don't scout that league for the NAL. If somebody is adamant that we need to see a kid in the Premier, we'll watch that kid in the Premier. But for the most part, I really can't give you an opinion on it. It goes back to some of the videos. You got a ton of videos by title. They can help you walk through the process if they're good programs or not good programs. But, the smell test works really good. If you go to a tryout and it's unorganized, if you go to meet with a coach and you sit down with a coach and he's unorganized, and I'm not pointing fingers at one, I'm just using this as a broad brush here. You got to do your homework. You got to be able to read people and understand that if you go into just a rat nest of an office and it's unorganized and they don't know what their budget is and they're telling you they don't know their schedule for next year yet and they don't know exactly when they're iced. I mean, there are some USPHL teams, this might be one of them, that ran their main camp day by day, didn't know what times they're getting on the ice every day. Very difficult for a player, very difficult for a parent, especially if you're trying to get rides to and from a hotel or a parent's trying to do remote work while the kid's at a tryout camp. Very difficult. So I just use the smell test. That's the first thing I do. Clearly you already have looked at how good they are on the record. You look at see what kind of output they have. But when you show up and there's an unorganized, I'll tell you this, my kids are all done with hockey, but when my kid got invited to a USHL camp, and I won't tell you which one it is, but it's in the state of Wisconsin. There was absolutely no way he was going to play for that team just because of the organization. He literally walked out thinking this is the most disorganized program I've ever been around. And that's coming from a player that would have been very happy playing in the USHL that year. Probably made a better choice because this is one of those where you say no, but you do it positively. He left there positively with this communication, ended up being in the Null, had a great time, had a great run for a couple years in the Null. So, yes, when you ask this specific question about the Elmira, I don't know, but smell test. You got to look at all the things. Don't get so excited about junior hockey, folks, where you're so excited you don't, pick up all the clues that this is a bad situation. Look, if I go to buy a brand new house and I pull up to the neighborhood and the house next to me has got 13 cats, 5 dogs that are, not on leashes, 3 cars up on blocks in the front driveway, do I want to live there? I grew up living next to one of those, so I might be used to it myself personally, but I really don't want to live in that neighborhood. But the house is really cool. It's a great buy. Well, maybe, but you're not going to change coming in. You're not going to change that. So maybe you got to rethink that. And that's part of this is we get dangled with this little glittery thing saying junior hockey. And sometimes we got to step back and say it's not really that good of an opportunity. So hopefully that helps. Frank wants to know, am I involved in the Rochester team? No, I used to own. We bought the former Null franchise here, and we put the team in the EJHL. We also owned the Syracuse franchise that we brought into Rochester, and then we owned a team below that. That's EJHL Empire. Then it turned into the USPHL, and then into the NCDC. But I know all the people. I know all the members of the management, their staff, their coaching. Good people, but no, I absolutely, they're my competition, and I love it. I'm thriving off the fact that they're doing that. This was the rival rink. I used to be the president of Rochester Youth Hockey, and so we were set up more centralized. This is the east side of town, and their organization. They came in and did this. So I'm not involved with youth hockey anymore, but it's our rival from when I was involved that did this. So good luck to them. No ill feelings whatsoever. Okay, let's get another question here. Is it easier to progress to the Null via CCHL or NCDC? Thanks for the wealth of info too. Okay, both of those are viable. I can tell you that there's the NCDC is without wanting it is positioned themselves now, or the players have positioned themselves that this has become basically a JV. I don't want to say that because that sounds negative. Strike the record. The witness did not mean to say that because that'll come back to haunt me. I'm not saying JV because that's like Michigan, Ohio, or Michigan State football when Michigan called Michigan State the little brother, then they lost like 4 out of the 5 next years. I don't want to get into that. No, what I meant to say is the NCDC has not quite turned into the Division I powerhouse they thought they were going to be as far as product and output. And so a lot of the players, however they got into the league, realized that there's very few opportunities to move into Division I unless you already have your commitment. And they use that to launch into the Null. There's probably less, and I'll post these numbers. The numbers are probably less coming out of the CCHL, but that's because the league. Here's the difference, though. That's because that league's got their own youth sport. They've got their own path. Not everybody in the CCHL is looking to play in the states and play Division I, Division III college in the states. So of course the number is going to be less. There's the Canadian mindset's different than the American mindset. And so an American going up there is doing it for a purpose. They want to come back and play. Now, I have seen, though, over the years that some Americans will stay up there and play U Sport up there after they see out the quality of the hockey, which the quality of the hockey is very good. But the majority of them want to come back to the States. And so I think the litmus test on this is there is a little bit more continuity in the CCHL from top to bottom on the rosters. There's less continuity in the NCDC from top to bottom of the league. The bottom of the league is nowhere near as strong as the top third. The top third, I've told you this, year after year. I've said this since the NCDC's been around. Top two teams consistently have been the Boston Junior Bruins and the Hitmen. The Hitmen you can put in any league and they'll be successful. Any league, they'll be successful. And I did not stutter when I said any league. They played a few years ago. They played the national development team, and everybody thought it was going to be just a walk in the park. They played them midseason. Everybody thought it was going to be a walk in the park for the national development team, U18s, and it was a 2-1 game. The U18s won, but it was a 2-1 game, and it was a battle. And it wasn't an intimidating battle like the Hitmen didn't go out there and play rough it up at all. It was just a battle. It was a good game, a good contest across the board. So, I don't know. That's my answer. I prefer the CCHL because I look at this and what else you're getting out of life besides just playing. Now, don't get me wrong. You live in Boston, that's a good experience. You live in New Hampshire, that's a good experience. You play in the NCDC, you live in Utica, you get to play hockey. But if you play in the CCHL, both of my kids played 1 year of Canadian juniors. This is going back. And they both learned life lessons. They both had to deal with things that they normally didn't have to deal with. And I think it was great for them to go to a foreign country and experience that. Regardless of the hockey, I think it was a good experience. So for an American, I'm pro CCHL, but not just because of the hockey. Hopefully that helps. Oh boy, good to see this one. Greg's back on. Good to see you, Greg. Haven't seen you in a while. Amherstburg, if you know where that is, across the bridge, turn right out of Detroit. You'll get there. Greg, good to see you. When do your junior spring camps typically start? The junior pre-draft camps will be running mid-June, I would say, because you got to wait for the teams to finish up with the North American Hockey League Robertson Cup. Once the Robertson Cup is over, it's like immediately the pre-draft start. So you get the pre-drafts first. They'll all be jammed in. You'll see all 30 teams, 31 teams. They'll all be going like in a 2-week period. Boom, boom, boom. And then right after that is the draft. So the draft, I gave you the date on this. I'll make sure you get the posted date online. I don't have that in front, and I left my calendar upstairs, so I'm in the downstairs office. But it's all going to happen early June, mid-June, boom, boom, done, and then it's time to move on. So the draft is June 12th, so I believe that the pre-drafts will all be right in that June 2nd, June 3rd, June 4th, that period of time for the most part, because I do know the draft, now that I think of it, it's the 12th. We're doing our pre-draft camp. So our pre-draft in Chicago, just outside of Chicago, it's actually in Indiana. We're doing that on the 2nd. I've got a wedding in Muskegon, so I'm going to try to coordinate getting from the camp, get a shower, get over to the wedding in Grand Rapids, have fun that night, turn around, get back down to Indiana, and be ready for the next day of the camp. So I think I can pull it off. I think I can. So we'll see. All right, what's wow, So Judy asked the same question. Don't need to post that one again. And then Frank says late May, early June. Yep, you're right on the ball there, Frank. So, all right, folks. Any other questions? Had a good audience on tonight. I think we cleared the big one. Is don't burn bridges. You don't always have to go to the top team or the top league. The biggest thing about this is go to the team that's right for you. you don't want to be in a situation where, and I think that the situation I started the show off with, I think the player was scared that he was going to get uh, earmarked into a fourth line role or in the stands too, which absolutely can happen at the junior level. When you come in as a rookie in the NAL, there's a really, really strong chance that you're going to be sharing a spot and you're going to be platooning in and out of the lineup with a couple other players. Now, that usually goes away once there's an injury or two, or there's a trade or something else happens, and you kind of lock in if you're performing, if you're holding up your end of the bargain. But it's tough being a rookie in the NAL. It's tough being a rookie in any junior league, but especially the league that's older and stronger like that. So is it a good idea to go to the CCHL or the OJHL, to go to the AJ for a year first? I don't see any problem with it. And I think sometimes if you can objectively stand back and say, even though we got an offer to that league, this is a better choice. You'll hear coaches, once again, I'll give you the example with my son played for Victory Honda, and the head coach there, Brian Burke's still there. Good guy, great guy, iconic coach that sits there. And he said, look, he goes, this Blankenberg kid at Michigan just came out of the AJHL, and he says, your son should play a year in the AJHL too. And we had not considered that at all. Now, I'd been up there scouting and recruiting years before that, but I had not kept really good contact with the coaches in that league. And, it's every year it gets different because every year the world gets smaller with more video online, more live barn, more hockey TV, more ability to watch teams on there. But, a few years ago, it's not what it is now. Even 3 years, 5 years ago, it's not what the capacity is. It gets better every single year. So we took the advice, and it was a phenomenal experience for him, and it really made a difference when he did go to the NAL and play in the NAL. So I think it's just a matter of having an open mind to be able to say, objectively, we're not ready. And it's super hard. Mostly, you've worked so hard. You've got your goal set there, and it's there. But if you know you're going to be on the bottom echelon, and it might pigeonhole you in that bottom echelon, or it wastes a year because you don't feel, and this could happen at Tier 3 too. And sometimes it happens more at Tier 3 than it does at Tier 2 or Tier 1. People think that the only place you sit is Tier 2 or Tier 1. That's not true. The rosters are bigger at Tier 3. You could be sitting more at Tier 3. That's why I always say check out the ability to play that second year of U18 if you don't have a quality team to go to, because there's nothing worse than being a good quality hockey player and be considered a rookie and the coach only likes his veterans, and that happens. And then the second year you're there, all of a sudden, boom, you get all the ice time in the world. But do you really want to sit for a whole year to get there? So having that objective ability to step back, this is where you talk to your coach. If you've got an advisor, you talk to your advisor. If you're not using those, you talk to your power skating instructor. You talk to your former coaches. You talk to some people that you trust in the game, and you say, look, where do you see me? And if they say, look, I think you're a borderline USHL player, but you're going to be a great NAL player. You're going to be a great BCHL player. And that's the consensus. You start getting it, you triangulate all this information. Maybe taking a year and playing in a different league is the right move for you. And it's the toughest decision in the world when you've got goals as a kid and goals as a parent. And probably sometimes it's tougher on us as parents to make that decision. Okay, we're going to take a couple more here and look at a couple more questions, and then we'll jump on and call it a night. Would you choose a Canadian Junior League over a second U18 year in the USHA or US AAA? Depends on the league. If you're HPHL, if you're playing for a quality Tier 1 elite, if you're playing for some of the power teams that are in the Tier 1 elite, if you're playing Beast, you got to go league by league. And there are some great scenarios. Once again, just Canadian Junior Leagues, there's a wide array of league. Let's just say the standard deviations from the middle in the CCHL are broad. Okay, you've got leagues like the AJHL right now, which is That's their Gold Star League. Then you've got the MJ, you got the SJ, that's Manitoba, Saskatchewan, CCHL, OJ. Those 4 leagues are almost interchangeable, and they're being pushed now by the Northern Ontario Junior League, which gets better every year. But then the Maritime, the Quebec, and the SIJHL, the Superior International Junior Hockey League, those are at times the majority of those leagues are below premier level play in the United States. USPHL Premier, they're definitely below the NOL. They're definitely below the EHL. Not always. There's some decent players there, but man, oh man, it just the floor falls out. And they're all supposed to be Junior A, but there's different levels. So you really got to go team by team or league by league before you make a decision on that. But I'm a big fan of staying in Tier 1 or U18 Tier 1 if you can. If you've got a great program and you've got momentum, I think there's nothing wrong with that. So, all right, next question here. I hope that helps. Jeff, are you going to be in St. Louis this weekend? No, I am not. And the reason why is my wife and my son are traveling to Wisconsin via Michigan to move all of his stuff out of his apartment in Wisconsin to the University of Michigan. I'm staying home, and I've got dog patrol. So we've got 3 dogs between him and my wife and I, and I'm watching all 3 dogs. That means my life is going to be walking a dog, picking up their dumps, walking a dog, picking up their dumps all day long, because as soon as I'm done with it 3 in the morning, it'll be time to start in the afternoon and do it all over again. So I'm looking forward to this like I want a bullet in the back of my brain. So, but that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm not traveling this weekend. They called dibs on the travel first. So can you still go D3 from Tier 3 juniors? Absolutely. You can go D3 from Tier 3 junior. Happens all the time. You'll get, yes, the level of team you'll play for if you come out of the Premier, if you come out of the NOL, you come out of the EHL. All those, I mean, they all get production. They all get players that move on to play Division III college hockey. The difference is your prime teams, your top teams in Division III are going to take the NOL guys. Because remember, still 20-30% of the NOL guys are going to go. And it's even more competitive now to get quality D3 opportunities, because remember, we're still in a logjam. We're still in a logjam because of the NCAA Division I rule about getting that extra year of eligibility. At first, they thought it was only going to affect the 2000s. Then it's the 2000s and the 01s. Well, now it's going to be the 01s, 02s, 03s, and we're even thinking it's going to affect the 04s, because they gave every single person, freshman and above, the ability to add 1 year of eligibility. So you got 5 years of college hockey now. So if you get redshirted for the first year, you got 5 more years after that. You could be at college for 6 years. You could practically come out being the dean of the school by the time you're done with school. You can get so many degrees when you get out of there. But that's really kind of logjam things up. That's why you got, you're going to see guys that will go from the NOL into the top programs. We've talked about whether it's probably Adrian, Stevens Point, Utica, Plattsburgh, Geneseo, all those names that are always in the top. There's some other ones I'm missing. No disrespect. But keep in mind, they're going to go there. You might be going to a mid-level, last-place team, but there's absolutely the ability to go coming out of the USPHL or any of the Tier 3 programs. Okay, so here's a great question, and the question is from Carrie. Do I go to the NAPHL or Tier 1 Elite? Okay, so there are some built-in advantages to the level of Tier 1 Elite. There's more good teams in the Tier 1 Elite. The NAPHL has, it's a good quality league, but the top teams are the top, and then there's the other teams. The Tier 1 Elite has the same problem. It's just there's more good teams in Tier 1 Elite than there is in the NAPHL. But the NAPHL gets a lot of good players that get a lot of good college commitments. But here's the things that are built in for you in that league. Every team in the NAPHL has got opportunities in the NAL because the NAL has to draft and tender players out. They have, at the beginning of the year, I'm given a list of what type of tenders I have, and I always have tenders that can only be used in the NAPHL and draft picks that can only be used in the NAPHL. So it's a built-in advantage. So if you're a good quality player, you could earn a draft or a tender easier than a Tier 1 elite kid at times. So there is that built-in advantage. And a lot of the teams do pull up from their NAPHL with affiliate players and give them a chance to get some games in with the NAL team. So heading to the Nationals next. Well, good luck to you, Carrie. Have a good time. What city are you in for your Nationals? I have not looked at any of the levels because I'm not out there traveling this weekend. The question is, will you be at U18 Nationals? Not this year. This is one of my off years from that. This whole year seems to be an off year for me on travel, but that's okay. Is the NAL majority D1 or D3? Or yeah, it's D1. It's probably 70% D1, and the D3. Like I said, the national championship team from 3 years ago, the Shreveport team. There were 5 players. This is the best team in the NAL that year. 5, 6, 7 players that ended up being D3 players. And that's okay. They all went to good programs. They all had a good situation. So, but yeah, it's the majority is that way. Where does the NOJO fall within the Canadian League rankings that you just talked about? So, Liz, that's a great one. I do a video. There's a video out there called the ranking. Basically, if you look at my videos on YouTube, Junior Hockey Advisor, grab the one that says something like the rankings suck, national rankings suck, or something. I can't remember the title. It's been changed a couple times, but basically what I do in there is the CCHL puts out their own poll. It's brutal. It's this kumbaya. Everybody gets a trophy for playing hockey. And so they've got SIJHL teams in the top 10, top 20 that, and they've got no BCHL or back with the BCHL up till last year, but they'll have no AJ teams in the top 10 with the Brooks Bandits, and you don't have them in the top 10. Come on. It's just this kumbaya thing. So the only way to fairly evaluate junior hockey programs to see if they're really in the top is output. You look at output. My favorite way to do it is to count D1 commitments. How many D1 commitments does this program put on there? Now, because the NOJO does have a lot of younger players, that might not be completely fair to the NOJO because they might have players that go from them to the NAL. They have players that go from them to the AJ. They have players that go to the OJ CCHL, and players will step out of there because that league is that's a tough league to play in. It's got a hard travel schedule, and it's a remote league in a very I don't want to say desolate because I like a lot of the teams towns that the NOJO plays in, but the NOJO usually falls into that third tier. Your first tier, AJ, second tier. It moved every year. It's a sliding scale though, so don't quote me that this is the way it is this year because we look after the year to see how this year went. But the next level is usually MJ, SJ, OJ, and CCHL. That's usually your 4 there. Then the NOJO usually follows right behind. So that's usually the way it is. But once again, you'll get a NOJO team that's got 3 or 4 studs on it that they can bounce up and play with the best in any league. Usually, you also got to be careful with the CGHL. But it's the host team. Remember, they rotate for the national championship, the host team. And so if you're a host team, all of a sudden that team's loaded and they're as good as anybody in the league. So be careful with that. That's the way it works up there. but it makes for some great hockey. I hope that helped a little bit. Let's. You're going to San Jose. That's right, San Jose. You'll have a great time. That's a great area for hockey. One question that came in earlier today. I would like to address this next week. We're going to talk about ages, and we're going to talk about aging out in junior hockey. We'll talk about this next Monday. I'll get to that. So, Matt, thank you for that question. We'll talk about how it works if you're going to turn 21 during your last year, what it does for your eligibility, and we'll cover all that next week. Look, folks, we were supposed to be a short night tonight, and we still went 56 minutes. Had a good crowd on. I appreciate you all getting on. If you have any other questions, feel free to still throw them in there on the comments, and we'll get to them. I know that not all the systems kick up their comments as quickly because I'll get off and I'll see some more comments, but I'll do my best to try to help answer any questions you have. Have a great night. Don't forget a couple things. If you haven't liked and subscribed to our YouTube page, please do. We really need the help. We're at like 770. We got to get to 1,000. So like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, jump on and have some fun looking at our Facebook groups. We've got a Facebook page, Junior Hockey Advisor. We have a Facebook discussion group, which is incredible. We're pushing up towards 9,000 members in that group right now. It is incredible. So jump on, throw your question up, just read through, comment, throw your comments up. You don't have to be an expert to be there, but keep in mind, there's GMs from the BCHL, from the USHL, from the NAL. There's coaches. There are pro people in there. There's retired Division I coaches. There's current Division I, Division III coaches. That's all part of the mix in this audience. So when you get onto that discussion group, make sure you don't show your rear end. Keep things positive and have fun with it. But any questions available that is okay to throw up there. You can ask anything, and it's a solicitation-free zone. You don't have to worry about people soliciting you, and if you do get solicited, let me know. I'll try to take care of it. Have a great night, folks. Wednesday night, Junior Hockey Live, where we just talk specifically about the teams, about the players, about the coaches, and about the leagues. We don't talk about the transition and moving up. We just talk about what's going on now in the leagues. That's where Mike Bloomer's with me. We'll have a great time Wednesday. We'll hope to see you there Wednesday evening. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.